Let us begin by reading the word problem. After spending an afternoon at the beach, two friends left in opposite directions to their home. One friend traveled a distance that is 4 times farther. If their homes are 20 miles apart, how far does each friend live from the beach? Let us go ahead and begin our strategy for problem solving by analyzing the problem. Keep in mind that the first thing we want to do when analyzing the problem is identify the question that's being asked. So in this case, we're asked, how far does each friend live from the beach? So now that we know what it is we're asked to find, we now know what our unknown variables are going to represent. So let us go ahead and assign our variables. So keep in mind there's two things we want to find: how far friend 1 lives from the beach and how far friend 2 lives from the beach. So we're going to need two variables. So we'll go ahead and use x and y, and in this case we'll let x and y represent the following. So we'll let x equal the distance friend 1 lives away from the beach, and we'll let y equal the distance friend 2 lives away from the beach. So there we go. Now keep in mind that whenever you use two variables, we're going to need the following idea. That is, the number of unknown variables must equal the number of equations required to solve. So again, I listed that at the very top. So just keep that in mind. So this is going to be a key for this problem. Since we have two variables, we're going to need two equations. So now let us continue analyzing the problem. So let's see what other information we can extract. So we know two friends left in opposite directions to their home. And we know that one friend traveled a distance that is 4 times farther. The key there being 4. And 4 times farther tell us that we're going to ideally multiply one variable by 4. And we also know a little bit more than that. We also know that their homes are 20 miles apart. So they live a distance of 20 miles from one another. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and draw a little picture. So I'll draw this little circle in the center to represent the beach. And we know that they traveled in opposite directions, so one went one way, and the other friend went in the other direction. And I'm drawing one longer than the other, because in blue they tell us that one friend traveled 4 times farther. So that means one arrow is going to be longer than the other arrow. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and label the longer one x. Doesn't really matter which one. So that means if that's the distance x, then this distance right here is y. So again, x is going to be this distance, and then y is going to be that distance. And again, the picture is not necessarily drawing to scale, but ideally one is 4 times longer than the other. So now, based on the equation given, which one's bigger, x or y? Yeah, x is definitely the bigger one. So let's go ahead and form an equation. So we're going to have x is equal to y, and now this is where the 4 comes into play. It says 4 times farther, so the keywords are 4 times. That means multiplication by 4. But if we want the two variables to be equal to one another, we're going to have to multiply the smaller one by a constant in order to make it bigger. So now the y is being multiplied by 4, which makes it bigger, and equal to x. So that's going to be our first equation. Now for your second equation, we know that the two friends live 20 miles apart. So the distance from one house to the other house is a total of 20 miles. So we know that this whole stuff is equal to 20 miles. So then that means that x plus y is equal to 20. So that's actually going to be our second equation. X when we add that to the distance of y, that's going to give us a distance of 20 miles apart. So there we go. Those are going to be our two equations. So now that we know our two equations, let's go ahead and solve. So we'll start off with the first equation by bringing it down. And then we'll also bring down the second equation. Notice, however, that the first equation is already solved for x. We know that x is equal to 4y. So we're going to go ahead and substitute that into x's place in the second equation. So x is now 4y, and we still have plus y is equal to 20. So combining the left-hand side, 4y plus y is going to give us a 5y, and that's going to be equal to 20. And now we want to get the y variable completely by itself. Right now we're multiplying it by 5. The opposite operation is division. So you're going to have to divide both sides by the 5. And therefore, we have a 5 divided by 5. That simplifies down to give us a 1y, which is the same thing as just y. And then 20 divided by 5 gives us 4. So we end up with y is equal to 4. But now that we know the value of y, we're going to get and substitute that into the first equation to find out the value of x. So we know x is equal to 4 times y, but now we know that y is equal to 4. So then that gives us that x is equal to 16. So now we have solved for both variables. So now let us go ahead and state our conclusion clearly. Since the question was how far does each friend live from the beach, we'll go ahead and state the following. So we'll say that friend 1 lives 16 miles away from the beach, and friend 2 lives 4 miles away from the beach. And that's because we don't have names, so we'll just refer to them as friend 1 and friend 2. Usually whenever the names are given, we'll state the names as they correspond. So now let us go ahead and check the result. So we'll start off with the original equations. So we'll have x is equal to 4y as the first equation. And the second equation is going to be x plus y is equal to 20. So now substituting in the corresponding values, we get 16 for x. And then that's going to be equal to 4 times y, which is 4. So for this first equation, we bring down the 16, and then 4 times 4 gives us 16. So we end up with a true statement, so that equation is correct. And now for the second equation, we end up with 16 for x plus 4 for y, and we hope that is equal to 20. And 16 plus 4 is actually indeed equal to 20. So we end up with 20 is equal to 20, which is a true statement. So now we know that our second equation is correct, and therefore our solutions for x and y are correct.